So the train was organized, and as I understand it, left this town, which I can't remember the name or even if there was a town there. Anyway, it was a congregating place, and started west. And I think they only traveled about 15 miles a day. Most of their train was oxen. But they had a big train, and therefore had very little Indian trouble on the way across. However, they did have one thing that happened that I'll tell you about. It seems as though, I don't know where it was, but it seems as though one of their people that belonged to their train killed, just shot, an Indian squaw. They were going along, the Indians came up pretty close to him, and this idiot of a person shot the squaw and killed her. Well, then the Indians surrounded that train all around it. They just came from every place, behind every bush, it seemed like, according to Mother. And they wanted that man. And apparently they knew who it was because they could see. So the wagon train leader decided that that's the only thing to do, save a lot of lives. So they turned him over to him, and they skinned him alive right in front of the wagon train. Just took a knife and cut his skin and pulled it off, strips, you know. And that was about the only thing that happened of any consequence. And Father said they never had much trouble with the road until they came to the Snake River in Idaho. I think the Snake River at this place borders Idaho and Washington. I'm not sure. But Father apparently was what they called an outrider. The train would go along in a big long string, and they would put these riders out about half, depending on the terrain. If it was level, they'd be a mile away looking for Indians or trouble. And if it was hilly country, why, they'd be at the right place so they could tell if they were going to be have Indian trouble. So when they got to the Snake River, he was one of the riders, and in order to get across the river, it was in flood stage, which would apparently be in the summer when the snows are melting in the in the hills. And these riders would go upstream and have a rope attached there, a long rope. They use long ropes. And they'd swim across on their horse. And then from the rope, they'd pull other ropes until finally it was big enough so they could take these wagons over. Now the wagons were, they would float on logs, and the logs were there. Apparently people ahead of them brought them there. And they'd attach them to the wheels and pull the wagon across, and the horses would swim. And it took a long time, but the river's so high that they lost a couple of outriders there. They were, the horses were tipped over or something, and they went down the river and drowned. Now after they left there, another thing, when that big wagon train got onto the Continental Divide, which is just above Rollins, Wyoming, Rock Springs, Wyoming. When I went through there years later, I stopped and talked to an old-timer there, in a bar, I guess, I don't know, and asked him about where the wagon train went. Well, he says it went right through here. And I said, well, did it go to California or Washington, Oregon? Of course, Washington wasn't known then. This territory was Oregon Territory. It wasn't a state. Well, he said the dividing the place where the roads branched was about 15 miles right up here on the Continental Divide. So that's where this big wagon train split up, and about half of them went north into Oregon, and the other half went south down through Salt Lake and into California. So they took the northern route because Father had always been a woodsman. He was apparently raised in the New England states, and he was an expert with a saw and an axe and that sort of thing. Well, he wanted to get into wood country, so that's the way they went. And years afterwards, when I went over to Oregon, eastern Oregon hunting, I asked about the Oregon Trail, and the fellow showed it to me. He says, or told me about it. He said, when you get out here on this road about so-and-so, he says, you look carefully and you'll see two tracks where the Oregon trail went through here and down to the Dalles. Now it ended at the Dalles, one of the most beautiful spots on the Columbia River. You've been there? And then from the Dalles, this is in 61 or 63, I believe, this group split up